Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 lucky finds that made people rich. People get rich in many ways. Some work hard, some win the lottery, but these people got rich thanks to pure luck after they found hidden items that will blow your mind. Before we get into it, click the link in the top right corner to check out my brand new channel, The Crafty. There's some amazing videos on there which I think you guys are gonna love. And why not also subscribe and turn on notifications. Coming in at number 10 we have baseball card. As kids we likely all had baseball cards. But unfortunately we're not all as lucky as Bernice Calego. She was cleaning up her garage one day when she found an old box. Inside the box was an old photo of a baseball team. She wasn't sure how it had got there or what it even really was, so she put it on eBay for $10. However, just 2 hours into it being up on the site, hundreds of people messaged her letting her know it was actually more valuable than she thought. She found out it was actually a rare vintage baseball card which she didn't even realize at first. She took it to an official securities dealer and they told her it was actually worth $75,000. Which is what Bernice sold it for. Yeah, that sure beats the $10 she listed it as on eBay. Next up is doll. You might not think a doll would be worth much money. I mean, you can buy a Barbie doll for $20, right? Not that I would know. But anyway, dolls aren't usually that pricey. However, this is not the case for George and Betty Davis's doll. This New York couple were clearing their attic one day when they saw this doll. They weren't sure how it had got there, but they were both keen on art, so they assumed one of them had bought it at some point. They never worked out where it came from, but they did find out how much it's worth. It turns out this doll was produced by the famous Fabergé jewelry company, the most expensive jewelry company in the world. But the real surprise is who it was made for. Fabergé made this doll for Nicholas II, Tsar of Russia, which makes it very rare and valuable, and as a result it was valued and sold for $5.2 million. Coming up next, we have Coca-Cola. Imagine finding $1 million worth of Coca-Cola. That would be cool, but Tony Maron found something even better. At a garage sale, she paid $5 for a random box of documents. You may think this is a win for the seller, as he got rid of loads of random documents and got $5 for them, but this seller is far from lucky. It turns out that inside those documents were 1,625 shares of a company called Palmer Union Oil. Now that company no longer exists, but this is because it merged with various companies before finally being bought by Coca-Cola. This meant that Tony had 1.8 million Coca-Cola shares, which translates to $130 million. So one $5 box of junk turned out to be worth a massive $130 million. But just imagine being the yard sale guy and trading $130 million for $5. That's gotta hurt. Next up is penny. If you walk around looking at the ground, chances are you'll find a lot of pennies. But one day, Robert Lawrence inherited an entire lunchbox full of pennies from his father. He sorted through the pennies and was planning to throw away any which were no longer legal tender. However, Robert stumbled across one coin from 1974. He first put it up for auction for $300, as it was a rare coin. But then one man noticed that the coin was made of aluminum and was one of only 10 coins ever made. Thanks to this, the penny was revalued and sold for a huge $2 million. Just think about all the people who used this as a simple penny when really they were carrying $2 million in their back pocket. This really makes me want to look behind my sofa for any hidden $1 million pennies. Next up is watch. We all know thrift shops sometimes sell some odd stuff, or trendy clothing if you know the famous Macklemore song. But one man named Zach Norris bought what some of us could only dream about buying at a thrift shop. At his local Goodwill in Phoenix, Arizona, he bought a watch for $6, simply because he needed one. But a friend then told him it was made by a designer brand. He looked online but couldn't find anything about it, so he bought it to a jeweler's. Amazingly, the jeweler told him it was an original Licoltre deep sea wristwatch. The watch was valued and sold for $35,000, making Zach a very rich and lucky man. Next up is pearl. We all know pearls are valuable, but what about a giant pearl? One day a fisherman was fishing near the island of Palawan in the Philippines. All of a sudden his anchor got stuck and he tried to free his boat. But as he did this, he brought up a massive pearl that weighed 34 kilograms and was huge. Surprisingly, he didn't get it valued at first. And when I say at first, I mean he literally kept it under his bed for 10 years. However, finally after 10 years, he decided to get the giant pearl valued, and this proved to be the best idea he'd ever had. The pearl was valued at a massive $35 million. But unsurprisingly, there aren't many people who can afford to drop $35 million on a pearl, so this hasn't been sold. Do you have a spare $35 million lying around? If so, put it to good use and buy this guy's pearl. Next up is comic book. Much like baseball cards, as kids we all had comic books. They weren't too expensive, only costing a few dollars normally. But if you're interested in comic books, you'll know some rare editions can sell for literally thousands. Well, if you think that's crazy, this find takes the cake. One day a man in Minnesota bought an old abandoned house to fix it up. He bought the house for $10,000, but while breaking down one of the walls to renovate it, he found a comic book. But this wasn't any old comic book. It was actually Action Comics #1, the most valuable comic book of all time. It was released in 1938 and was the first comic book to ever feature Superman. The man may have paid $10,000 for the house, but the comic book sold for $2.5 million, so it's safe to say this was a good investment. Next up is painting. We all know some paintings can sell for a whole lot of money, but it's not often people simply find rare pieces of priceless art laying around their house. One couple in Wisconsin had a painting in their house for years, but never knew who it was by. They realized it was by Vincent van Gogh, but ignored it for years, as they were sure they'd bought a replica, seeing as it was only a few dollars. However, after they noticed how good the brush strokes were and how the original version was reported missing, they got it checked out. And amazingly, it was confirmed they'd bought the original for just a few dollars. The piece was later sold for $61.8 million, meaning this couple got super lucky and sold the 1886 original for millions despite buying it so cheaply. Next up is whiskey. When it comes to expensive drinks, whiskey comes to mind. It can cost anywhere from $40 to $60 for a good bottle. But one day a man named Brian Fitt was clearing out his attic. He was moving out old junk when he saw some boxes that had been there since he moved in. He was about to throw them away when he suddenly realized they contained 13 bottles of whiskey. But this wasn't Jack Daniels. No, this whiskey was dated all the way back from 1917. He found 13 bottles which were worth over $200,000 each, meaning that his amazing find was worth more than $2.6 million. You might have assumed Brian rushed out to sell the bottles, but no, instead he plans to drink them with his friends. Either this guy already has a ton of money or he really likes his whiskey. Coming up next is car. Back in 1964, 6 Ford Daytonas were built by Carroll Shelby to rival Ferraris. Only 5 exist now, as one was destroyed. However, one day in 1994, a woman inherited her father's storage locker. It hadn't been open for 20 years, but she opened it up anyway, not expecting much. However, to her amazement, was a car in an old storage locker. She didn't know this at the time, but it was one of the 5 remaining Ford Daytonas in the world, worth over $4 million. Talk about a good inheritance. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the most lucky person who got rich by finding things. And check out my new channel, The Crafty Guys, I think you're gonna love it. If you comment saying you subscribed on the latest crafty video, you'll get a shout out in the next top 10s video. Here's a shout out to someone who's already done that, so definitely do it yourself for another shout out at the end of our next video. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.